If you answer that question the normal way, you can hand the officer the exact words needed to write you up harder, stretch the stop, or start fishing for more. One apology can sound like a confession. Before I reveal the exact words, hit subscribe right now so you can find this video again when you actually need it on the side of the road. And tap like because this is the kind of video people remember 5 minutes too late. Here's the reality. That little joke from the officer is not small talk. It sounds friendly, but it can be a trap. You think you're being polite. The officer is listening for admissions. You say you were rushing to work. Now you admitted you were hurrying. You say you didn't see the sign. Now you admitted you missed the sign. You say you're sorry. Now you sound like you know you did it. I've analyzed over 200 body cam videos, and the pattern is always the same. Drivers talk to be nice, then they talk themselves deeper in. In this video, you're going to learn the one line to use before you ever apologize, the follow-up question that helps end the stop faster, the search refusal line every driver should know, and what to say if the officer tells you to step out. Let me show you exactly how a normal stop turns bad, and how your words can keep it small. Most people have no idea how much damage they do in the first 10 seconds. The problem is simple. You've been trained your whole life to answer adults, be respectful, and smooth things over. So when a cop says, "Where's the fire?" your brain wants to fix the tension. You smile, you laugh, you explain, you apologize, and your mouth starts building the case for them. Here's the reality. A traffic stop is not a therapy session. It is not a debate club. It is not your chance to explain your good heart. It is an investigation. That means every extra word can become a clue, a reason, or an excuse to keep digging. Listen closely because this is critical. You do not have to help build a case against yourself. You do have to stay calm. You do have to comply with lawful orders. But you do not have to chat your way into trouble. So when that officer says, "Where's the fire?" your first job is not to be clever. Your first job is to stop giving away free evidence. The first thing you say is simple, calm, and boring. Here's exactly what you say. "Officer, I prefer not to answer questions." Word for word. Memorize that line. That line matters because it does two things at once. First, it stops you from blurting out an admission. Second, it tells the officer you are not volunteering more than you must. You're not being rude. You're not arguing. You're not refusing your license or registration. You're just not helping with extra questions. A lot of drivers think they should say, "I'm sorry, I'm late," or "My bad, I was just trying to keep up," or "I didn't mean to speed." That feels harmless. It is not harmless. Those lines can sound like you agreeing with the officer's version of events. Even if you did nothing serious, you just made the stop easier for them and harder for you. Bad way. Most drivers say, "Sorry, officer, I'm late for work." Then the officer hears an admission and has a reason to keep asking more. Good way. Smart drivers say, "Officer, I prefer not to answer questions." Then the officer has a lot less to work with. Defense attorneys use this exact line in court because silence is stronger than a messy explanation. This is 100% legal. You can politely decline questions. You still hand over your license, registration, and proof of insurance if your state requires it. But you do not have to explain your speed, your day, your plans, or where you came from. Let me show you exactly why this works. On the roadside, officers often ask questions before any Miranda warning. People think, if they didn't read me my rights, my words don't count. That is not how it works in a normal stop. In Berkmer v. McCarty, the Supreme Court said, regular roadside questioning during a traffic stop usually happens before Miranda kicks in. Plain English? You can absolutely talk yourself into trouble before anyone reads you anything. There's another reason your line needs to be clear. In Salinas v. Texas, the Supreme Court showed that just going quiet can backfire if you do not clearly say you are using your right to stay silent. Plain English? Don't just stare at the steering wheel and hope that protects you. Use your words to stop using your words. So if the officer says, "Where's the fire?" you don't joke back. You don't confess. You don't explain. You say, "Officer, I prefer not to answer questions." Then you stop talking. Watch what happens. A lot of the energy dies right there. The officer may not like it. That does not matter. Your goal is not to be liked. Your goal is to protect your case, your wallet, and your freedom. Former police officers have confirmed this works because it removes the easiest fuel officers use to grow a stop. Have you ever been asked something like this during a stop? Drop a comment below and tell me the exact question, because you'll be shocked how often the same traps get reused. The second tactic starts after the officer runs your information and starts lingering. This is where many stops get weird. The ticket or warning is basically done, but the officer keeps talking. Now they ask where you're headed, whether you have anything illegal, or if you mind waiting a little longer. Here's the trick they don't want you knowing. Once the mission of the traffic stop is over, the officer is not supposed to drag it out just to go fishing. You need a clean question. Here's exactly what you say. Officer, am I free to leave? Say it calm. Say it once. Then be quiet. That question is powerful because it forces the moment into focus. Either you are free to go or the officer is still detaining you. If you are free to go, you leave. If you're not free to go, the officer should have a lawful reason to keep you there. That matters because a lot of drivers get trapped in the gray zone. Their documents are back. The warning is done, but they keep chatting like they still need permission to exist. Bad way. Most drivers say, sure, I can stay and answer a few more questions. Then the stop stretches out and turns into a bigger investigation. Good way. Smart drivers say, officer, am I free to leave? Then the officer has to either end it or justify keeping you. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings. In Rodriguez versus United States, the Supreme Court said police cannot extend a traffic stop longer than needed for the traffic mission, unless they have extra legal reasons. Plain English, they cannot finish the speeding stop and then keep you there just because they feel curious. And yes, officers may still try to keep the conversation casual. They may smile, they may say, hey, relax, I'm just asking. You still use the line, officer, am I free to leave? That keeps you out of the trap where casual becomes consent. Watch what happens when you do not ask that question. The stop drifts. The officer says, you don't mind if I ask a couple more things, right? You say yes because you want to seem cooperative. Now you are still there. Then comes the drug question, then the weapon question, then the search question. Then suddenly you're on the shoulder for 20 extra minutes wondering how this got so bad. When you ask, am I free to leave? You stop the drift. You make the moment clear, you make the record cleaner, and you remind yourself that the stop has limits. This is 100% legal. You are not challenging the badge, you are asking a simple status question. Legal? Experts agree this is your strongest protection once the paperwork part is done. The third tactic is the one that saves people from the biggest mistake on the roadside. If the officer asks to search your car, your bag, your trunk, or anything inside, you need one plain sentence ready. Here's exactly what you say. Officer, I do not consent to any searches. Word for word. Memorize that line. This line matters because consent changes everything. If you say yes, you make it much harder to fight the search later. If you say maybe, you create confusion. If you say, I guess that's fine, you basically open the door yourself. Your job is to be clear and calm. A lot of drivers think refusing a search makes them look guilty. That fear is exactly why officers ask so casually. They know normal people hate awkward moments, so they make it sound easy. You don't mind if I take a quick look, do you? That word quick is bait. A quick look can become a full search. Bad way. Most drivers say, I guess that's okay if you need to. Then their own words become consent. Good. Way. Smart drivers say, officer, I do not consent to any searches. Then they keep their rights alive. This is 100% legal. You do not lose your rights because the officer sounds nice. You do not lose your rights because you want the stop over faster. In fact, giving consent can make the stop much longer. Legal experts agree this is your strongest protection when the conversation starts turning from traffic to hunting. There's a reason defense lawyers love clean refusals. If the officer searches anyway, you're clear. Refusal can matter later in court. If you never refused, the officer may claim you agreed. And once your own words become part of that story, fixing it gets much harder. This connects with Ohio versus Robinette in an important way. The Supreme Court said officers do not always have to tell you that you are free to go before asking for consent to search. Plain English? Do not wait for the officer to warn you that you can refuse. You must protect yourself. You ask if you are free to leave. And if they ask to search, you say no clearly. Let me show you exactly what this sounds like in real life. The officer says, mind if I look in the car? You answer, officer, I do not consent to any searches. The officer may ask again in a different way. You got nothing to hide, right? You repeat the same line. No speeches, no attitude, no extra words. Just the same sentence. If you are starting to see how many rights people give away with one nervous sentence, keep watching. Because the next move is where drivers either stay calm or make everything worse. The fourth tactic is for the moment the officer tells you to step out of the car, move to the back, or put your hands where they can see them. This scares people, and that fear makes them start babbling. That is when you need one more line ready. You look at the officer and say this, I will comply, but I do not consent to any searches and I do not wish to answer questions. Those exact words. Why this line? Because you can comply without volunteering. You can follow lawful commands without opening your mouth wider than needed. Pennsylvania River Mims gives officers broad power to order drivers out during a lawful stop. Plain English? If they tell you to step out, step out. Do not fight over that on the roadside. But stepping out does not mean you surrendered every other right. Bad way. Most drivers say, why are you making me get out? I didn't do anything. Then tension jumps and the officer gets more suspicious. Good way. Smart drivers say, I will comply, but I do not consent to any searches and I do not wish to answer questions. Then they obey without feeding the stop. This line protects you from the panic spiral. You know the spiral. You step out, you start explaining. You say you are nervous because there is cash in the car, or your cousin borrowed it, or you smoked last week, or you forgot something in the trunk. None of that helps you on the roadside. All of it can hurt you. Former police officers have confirmed this works because calm compliance lowers drama, while clear words protect your position. You're not escalating. You're not resisting. You're being controlled and precise. That is exactly what you want if the stop is getting more serious. Most drivers think the key is sounding innocent. That is not the key. The key is saying less. Innocent people talk too much every day. Guilty people talk too much too. Your safety is in discipline, not performance. Most people already clicked away. If you're still here, you're in the top 10%. Drop a comment saying I'm still here, because this next part ties every tactic together and makes you actually remember it. Now let's connect the legal backbone in plain English, because you need more than slogans. You need to know why these lines work. Berkhammer v. McCarty tells you roadside questions during a normal stop usually happen before Miranda warnings. That means your words can still be used, even when no one reads you your rights. So your protection is not waiting for a TV moment. Your protection is choosing better words now. Rodriguez v. United States tells you a stop cannot be stretched out longer than needed just to investigate other stuff without more legal reason. So when you ask, am I free to leave? You're forcing the stop back to its lane. Pennsylvania v. Mims tells you officers can order you out of the car during a lawful stop. So you do not argue about stepping out, you comply. But compliance is not consent. That is why your search refusal still matters. And Ohio v. Robinette is the reminder that officers do not have to coach you through your rights before asking for consent. So if you do not say no, nobody may say it for you. This comes straight from Supreme Court rulings, and in 7th grade English, it means this: be polite, be still, comply with lawful orders, and do not volunteer what the officer can use against you. Now let's walk through the whole stop so you can hear the wrong version and the right one. You are driving home. Lights come on behind you. You pull over safely. Your hands stay visible. Your documents are ready if asked. The officer walks up and says, "Where's the fire?" Wrong way first. You laugh and say, "Sorry, officer, I'm late and I was just trying to get home." Now you admitted rushing. The officer asks where you were coming from. You answer. They ask if you had anything to drink. You say only one earlier. Now the stop just changed shape. They go back to the car. They return slow. They hand back your documents. Then they ask if you have drugs, weapons, or large amounts of cash. You answer because you're already talking. Then they ask to search. You say, sure, I have nothing to hide. Now you're standing on the shoulder while your whole car gets torn apart. Now the right way. You pull over. You stay calm. The officer says, "Where's the fire?" You answer, "Officer, I prefer not to answer questions." The officer may not love that. That is fine, and you provide the required documents. You do not make speeches. The officer comes back. The warning or ticket is done. If the officer lingers, you ask, "Officer, am I free to leave?" If the officer asks to search, you say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." If the officer orders you out, you say, "I will comply, but I do not consent to any searches, and I do not wish to answer questions." That stop may still be annoying, but your words are no longer helping build a bigger case. That is the difference. In the wrong version, your mouth keeps expanding the stop. In the right version, your mouth keeps closing doors. Next video, I'm revealing what to say when cops claim they smell weed. Subscribe so you don't miss it, because that line gets people searched every single day, and most drivers answer it the worst possible way. So lock this in. When the officer jokes with, "Where's the fire?" you do not apologize and you do not explain. You say, "Officer, I prefer not to answer questions." When the traffic business is done, you ask, "Officer, am I free to leave?" If they ask to search, you say, "Officer, I do not consent to any searches." And if they order you out, you comply while repeating that you do not consent and do not wish to answer questions. You do not need to be scared. You need to be short, calm, and repeatable. That is your power. That is your protection. And that is how you stop a simple traffic stop from turning into something much worse. Hit subscribe so you catch that weed smell video next. Smash, like if this script just saved you from a future mistake. And drop a comment telling me which exact line you're going to memorize first. Stay safe out there.